A commitment at the beginning of the week, official visits at the end of it, and camp season just around the corner. Those are 3 thoughts on a Thursday on the Beat, presented by the Waterworks. He's Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward, and all 3 of those things are recruiting thoughts, Berm. It is probably, there's been a little bit of a layoff in the talking stuff, but I think, the Beat is a more general audience, and they need to understand what's about to happen on the recruiting trail.
I think the average fan has grown a little, there was this rise and ebb and flow in the way people think about recruiting as a fan. Like in the early days, like the 20 years ago. In the early days, when the internet really started to figure out a way to commoditize. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Nice. Commoditize recruiting. Then everyone's like, it kind of feels weird to care about this all year round. It feels weird to give a crap what a high school junior is going to eat on a visit to a college but then
cookie cake.
Not anymore. But then 15 years into it, everyone's like, hey, this is kind of awesome. It's the soap opera that actually fuels college football, and it's all year round, and we can't get enough college football. And then NIL happened, and I think most people anymore are kind of just like, meh, whatever. Ohio State's always going to get good players.
So you're saying the internet commoditized recruiting, and now the recruits have commoditized the process.
Right, and I think people don't like that because, we've seen it on our end. It is way harder to build truly good relationships with recruits in high school now because of how focused everything is on money. There is no value for recruits to really getting to know people in the media space of the individual markets anymore because they don't need us to grow a brand anymore.
Can help their brand.
It can certainly help, but I don't think that that's being voiced often by the people who are taking chunks of their money.
Sure.
Because they don't want people to get information for free in this new world. So it's interesting. It certainly is still the best time of the year for recruiting because the traditional signing day has become somewhat irrelevant and doesn't really matter anymore. The lead up to the early signing period is at the end of the season. Everything is jammed in, so it kind of feels rushed. This is the time of year, I think, when it's still
real.
It's real.
Authentic.
And it's romantic about recruiting because this is when it still matters.
I thought authentic was better. You have the romance for it. It felt like the last couple of years you were saying it had lost that for you.
Camp season doesn't though. Camp season is still the beauty of it all. Because there are going to be thousands of kids who come to Columbus over the next 3 weeks. Of that thousands that show up, maybe 150 have a real legitimate chance to be an Ohio State Buckeye. But when you watch 900 kids from around Ohio get an opportunity to work for Ryan Day or work with James Laurinaitis, none of them, and I would say none by meaning it's the amount of alcohol in a 0 alcohol beer, right? There's still some in there, but it's not enough to make you feel like it's really worth it, right?
It's the amount of calories in a Coke Zero.
Right. So there's still but none of the kids who come to camp of their own volition actually think that they're going to be leaving with an Ohio State offer. The kids who Ohio State invites to camp, that's a much different story. Now the kids who are hey, you know what? I get a chance to go get better at football. Just because they don't have a chance to get an Ohio State offer doesn't mean that it's still not valuable and it's still not awesome, especially for me as a kid who grew up in Ohio. It's just cool to see people get a chance. You see the kids roll in there with their Ohio State National Championship shirts and then they get autographs, they get all the pictures. It's easy to still be romantic about that side of it, I think.
Well, I think and I've said this for the last couple of years, and it's one of my favorite things and why I've been going to more of the recruiting camps, aside from seeing the current team, the experience of watching, and we keep talking about James Laurinaitis, and we probably will again in the show, or Carlos Lachlan, and last summer forcing a bunch of 8th graders or requesting them to do some up downs because a drill didn't go the way that he wanted. That's an insight into the way that Carlos Lachlan coaches and handles everything. Right. And we get a nice glimpse and window of that in spring ball, first couple of days of training camp. But this is an opportunity where these guys get to actually coach ball, no distractions. It's not going to be an NIL forward conversation or any other things that they may not like about the way college football has gone over the last couple of years. They get to go out there and shape the futures, the lives, the careers athletic careers, no matter what level it ends up finishing at for those athletes. Like, that's what they got into it for. 99.9% of the coaches I've met, whether it becomes incredibly lucrative for them and their families or not, what initially prompted them to do that is that they loved the game. They loved being around people. They wanted to pass that information and knowledge on to others. That's what gets everybody largely in the door. And this is the purest sense of that, because they're not going to win or lose a game in June.
Right.
And they may not win or lose a recruitment on it.
And they may very well be excused if they went out there at these camp settings and slacked off.
Yeah.
But they don't. None of the Ohio State coaches do anything different with random 8th graders or 9th graders than they do with Travion Henderson or Devin Sanchez or anybody else. Like, these guys are coaching them the exact same way. And so for those players who get a chance to come learn, like, it's pretty awesome. And then you see the ones that Ohio State does invite and how instrumental it is for those kids. One of the reasons why Ohio State has focused so much of its recruiting efforts on spring football and summer camps is because they are learning how important it is for all these kids and their families to see the process of what Ohio State actually does. Like, anybody can put on a nice show on game day. Like, if you are actually watching at practice, if you are actually being coached up by that coach, it changes.
James Franklin has done it for years.
James Franklin has done that for years. He puts on a nice show during a game. But that has its place. But Ohio State doesn't really need to sell itself in that way anymore. They need to sell the authentic nature of the way that their coaches get after it.
Yeah, camp season to me screams summer. And seasons change, but comfort does not. Call the Waterworks in Header, Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing for maintenance, installation, and repairs, or visit online at thewaterworks.com. The Waterworks in Header, Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. They are proud sponsors of Ohio State athletics. You did touch on, the commitment at the beginning of the week from Prince Goolsby and James Laurinaitis bringing in a linebacker. You wrote the word Arvelian.
I think it makes a lot of sense. But aside from the fact that I'm not here to talk about Prince Goolsby's personal life and the things that he's gone through. Someday he'll tell those stories, the things we've heard about what he's experienced, what he's had to deal with as a young person.
Well, he doesn't want to talk about it.
He doesn't want to talk about it because, from what I understand, he's not the person who even told his future position coach at Ohio State and James Laurinaitis about any of the stuff he's been through. So there are parallels that mirror Arvell Reese off the field as well as on the field that I think really make this a recruitment that, 3 months ago, all the focus on the additional linebacker recruiting that Ohio State was doing to add to Quentin Cipher was on A.J. Randall, the linebacker from North Carolina who committed to Miami last week. For James Laurinaitis, Matt Patricia, the rest of the Ohio State defensive staff, they have been watching and rewatching film on Randall, on Caden Henderson, the number 1 ranked linebacker in the country. They were putting Prince Goolsby's tape into the mix, comparing him to everyone else around the country. And it was about 2 months ago, someone in that building said, hey, this is probably our favorite guy, and we're going to have to start pushing here. They worked really, really hard to get him on campus for the spring game. Obviously made a big connection there. Was not anywhere close to Ohio State being the highest bidder on the NIL front. That was Nebraska, from what I understand. But one visit, a couple visits from James Laurinaitis and the rest of the Ohio State defensive staff to see him in Kansas City. And he commits this week. So that, and the real value of that for Ohio State is that, A, it means that they can cancel other visits, right? So the visit that even A.J. Randall, from what I understand, when he committed to Miami, his agent was still telling people, well, he's still going to take all 5 of his officials. And okay, well, why are you committing a week before you start taking your officials then?
Maybe just wait.
Maybe you're just trying to, drum up some battles on the NIL front. But Ohio State turned around and said, you know what? No thanks. We don't need that to happen. Same thing with Caden Henderson, who looks like it's an LSU, Notre Dame, Texas A&M battle. And Ohio State's like, hey, you know what? Good job, but we're not interested. So the Buckeyes now don't have to spend money on those official visits and bring in guys that are not going to be a part of the class. And it allows James Laurinaitis to really focus on adding the one additional piece at linebacker, which they hope is Kaylon Bailey, a edge rusher linebacker from Cleveland Glenville. So we go back to the Arvelian stuff. Kalen is a different type of athlete. He's 6'1", 6'2", maybe just about 210 pounds, but a really, really good player off the edge. And so what you'll see now for Ohio State is this weekend you'll have Prince Goldsby on campus as one of the only 4 now official visitors coming to town, obviously already committed. You have next week, Kaylon Bailey will come in for his official visit, so he'll get the red carpet rollout and all the attention from James Laurinaitis. And then the week after that, the 12th, Quentin Cipher will come in for his. So Laurinaitis has that staggered to make sure that each guy gets their full attention. And again, he's been pretty darn good at getting whatever he wants and understanding, like, and the reality is, and this is why like the comparisons to Brian Hartline are going to be so apt, aside from their history of playing at Ohio State and their success in the NFL, blah, 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 they are connecting with kids in a way that are making kids who could pick other schools for a lot more money choose Ohio State, because they're realizing this is not somebody selling me on something. He is showing me exactly what he did and how he got there, and doing it at the same place. So the Kaylon Bailey of it all is going to be interesting. I've heard rumor milling that milling is the key term here, that there's other schools that have put that sort of offer in front of Bailey, which is great if you can get it. We don't know how true any of that stuff is, unfortunately, but there's a decision date scheduled for him on June 25th. It's being widely like assumed that it's going to be Ohio State because he's an in-state player. He's a position that James Laurinaitis wants. He plays at Glenville. All of the things that like in a traditional recruiting world would make this feel like a slam dunk, but like there's no such thing as a slam dunk in recruiting anymore, because if someone else is offering him 7 figures, Ohio State is just not going to. And you can't tell the kid, don't do that. So it's hard to see Ted Ginn Sr. saying, hey, you know what, pass that up for a fraction of it. But we'll see.
It's a whole nother conversation and a thread that we don't have to pull right now, but often those can be the second recruitments anyway. And
that's the value of it for Ohio State, because this is a player who's not going to play at Ohio State in year 1. And if he can go to somewhere else that is a disaster and they want to give him all the money early, then Ohio State is more than happy to call him in a year. That's their preference.
When you to go back to the Arvell conversation here, how much of this is a athletic profile shift that James Laurinaitis is leading? How much of it is Matt Patricia's desire? It's been a couple weeks since I've talked about the versatility on the defense. Got to bring that back into the equation. Clearly, Prince Goldsby is someone who could play on that as an outside linebacker, could play in coverage, could also rush the passer, be an edge threat. All the things that make him Arvellian, lend his skill set to multiple positions. I guess it would probably be a combination of both, because I can't really imagine that there's a world where James Laurinaitis is recruiting in a silo without any input from Matt Patricia. It seems like the way that staff has worked together has been really collectively cohesive.
And they have identified a type of player they want. It's long, it's fast, it's a guy who can do multiple things. And what's interesting to me about that discussion is because all of the post-season conversation about Arvell, all the pre-draft conversation about Arvell was like, oh, he's going to be an edge rusher, but he didn't do it at Ohio State. So I'm interested in the more that Ohio State gets these body types, and right now Prince is 6'4", 205, 210 pounds. He's going to end up playing at Ohio State in that 235 to 240 range. I'm interested to see if the more that they get players like this, and Arvell was kind of an anomaly and an accident, like you didn't really know what you had with him right when you recruited him. It took a minute, and seeing him play some defensive end as a freshman to be like, hey, we could maybe do some things like that with him. But they didn't really do that with him, like except for a couple games early in the season where they let him be a stand-up edge rusher. But they didn't really do a lot of straight pass rush stuff for Arvell. I'm interested if that will continue more as they continue to bring in these types of players. But it's obvious if you look at a guy like Quentin Cipher, the middle linebacker that Ohio State has committed in this class. He's 6'3", 210. I was told that he's like a lunatic. Like he's like a Tommy Eichenberg mentality, but with a longer, faster, leaner, athletic profile. So they're trying to find all the different pieces and piece them all together and say, okay, we need this for this sort of role, this for this sort of role. But everything that happens with the defense right now is going through Matt Patricia. And that's not even just at linebacker. Yeah, that's one of his, main cups of tea. But what you see this weekend for Ohio State is originally Braden Parks, who is a 4-star from Chicago, was supposed to take an official visit this weekend. He's been now pretty much he's removed from the list. It's going to be Oregon or Notre Dame for him. Waylon Wooten, a defensive tackle from Georgia, who's a 6'1", 320-pounder, very Caden McDonald-esque, picked Georgia on Wednesday night.
Wait, Georgia learned their lesson?
Georgia learned their lesson, didn't let him get away, and didn't let him make the official visit to Ohio State this weekend. And then Nate Kamba, another 6'4", 315-pound guy in the middle, Ohio State took him off the board for this weekend. So, as I said, they only have 4 official visitors, which is, in my recollection, especially since they shifted the focus to these June weekends, I can't remember a smaller official visit weekend for Ohio State, which is going to set up a really interesting approach, I think, for Ryan Day and Matt Patricia and Arthur Smith and everyone, because you have 2 official visitors on offense, 2 official visitors on defense. One of them is already committed. So this is as most of a red carpet rollout for 3 individual players that I can recall ever.
A slimmed down list, you say?
Slimmed down list. And you know what else is slimmed down, Austin? Us. Thanks to Awaken 180. If you go to awaken180weightloss.com and sign up now, I'm confident that you will still lose. Yes, you could still lose 40 pounds by the 4th of July. I really think that. If you really worked at it, it's summer. You're going to be outside. You're going to be grinding. You're going to be, losing a little. Maybe it's a little much, but I lost 40 in 8 weeks. He did the same thing. It is such an easy plan to follow as long as you just are committed to doing it and taking the coaching that I got from Mandy. Helped me all the time. The app, I still use the app to track my food. I still use the app to track my weight. I'm still losing weight. I'm still feeling great thanks to Awaken 180. If you go to awaken180weightloss.com, sign up today.
All right, so names were removed from the weekend. Run down that Fab 4 again. And is there any possibility that there could be a 5th?
I don't think that's possible at this juncture. Even guys like Jameer Brown, the Ohio State wide receiver commitment from Big Walnut High School, was originally scheduled this weekend. He's moved it back to the June 19th weekend. I'm not entirely sure why. It doesn't matter. There's no concern there. Yeah. But you have David Gabriel George, the number 1 ranked running back in Ohio State's mind, and has been the top of the list target for them for a year and a half. You have Benny Easter, a borderline 5-star wide receiver who's committed to Texas Tech from Humble, Texas. You have Marcus Fakatau. That is how it's pronounced. Fakatau.
Okay.
Because I asked him today.
Am I getting this right?
I said, hey, buddy, I'm hearing your name all kinds of ways. How is it actually pronounced? I should have understood. Being Samoan, there's going to be some words and some manipulation and matriculation in there. So Fakatau is his Fakatau, 6'7", 290-pound defensive tackle. That's like,
say that again.
When you ask yourself,
what did you say those numbers were?
6'7", 290-pound defensive tackle. Okay. If you ask yourself what Matt Patricia is used to, and if he's getting what he wants, then you see a 6'7", 290-pound Richard Seymour-esque type defensive tackle. Where did Richard Seymour play a lot of his NFL football?
Well, he played for the New England Patriots.
Cool. So when you have someone like that paired with someone like 6'5", 350-pound Jameer Perez, for example, a freshman at Ohio State right now, which is more of like a Vince Wilfork type of defensive tackle. Can you remind me, where did Vince Wilfork play?
Well, that you also have selected someone who played for the New England Patriots again, Berm.
Okay, so and did Matt Patricia coach there?
He was the defensive coordinator for the Patriots. He won several Super Bowls.
So there was Richard Seymour and Vince Wilfork? And,
yeah.
Okay. So, yes, that's pretty much what they're looking for. And then you have Kazi Curry, who's a teammate of Fakatau, who at Sierra Canyon in California. He's going to visit on the weekend of June 19th. So it's kind of bookending with the 2 top targets at defensive line left for Ohio State.
Why did they want to take it together?
That's a great question. I don't know, because there is so much discussion about them going to the same school. Right now, you've got Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, Texas as pretty much the top group.
There's not a lot of room for non-contenders in that list.
No, so it is interesting. This weekend, Kazi Curry will be in Athens, Georgia, not in Columbus. I'm surprised by that as well.
Maybe they want to compare notes. What's it like if we're not around there together?
Maybe, but they are just their first-year teammates at Sierra Canyon, so it's not like they're BFF forever. But Kazi Curry is someone we'll talk about a lot more 3.5 weeks from now. But what you have this weekend then is the entire offensive staff, being able to focus on David Gabriel George and Benny Easter, who, again, he's committed to Texas Tech, and I know that immediately that's going to make people say, well, okay, you're not going to flip him. From what I've been told, from what we understand about the current NIL situation with Benny Easter, is that it is not what I was told. It's not a ludicrous price tag at this point. Now, will that change if Texas Tech feels a little pressure from Ohio State and LSU and Texas and Ole Miss trying to sneak around and get into the Benny Easter conversation, which is happening? Maybe. But he visited Ohio State completely kind of out of the blue for the April 4th or April 1st Student Appreciation Day, whatever day it was this year, and immediately left and scheduled his official visit for this weekend to get right back on campus. So you don't want to be pie in the sky optimism, but you also, like, this kid isn't coming to Ohio State to be offered millions of dollars to play wide receiver. He's going to come to Ohio State.
Well, he could get it later.
He could get it, and there is proof that Ohio State is pretty good at developing those receivers. But we'll see how Cortez Hankton needs to add someone like Benny Easter to this class alongside Jameer Brown, because monetarily, it's not the year where Ohio State's going to be like huge spenders at wide receiver based just on what they had to pay for Chris Henry Jr. And now the Brock Boyd of it all and the Jaquan Guilford raise that he got because of the Brian Hartline departure. So and then you still have obviously other younger receivers that are on the roster that you need to think about how you manage. But I've never seen an Ohio State weekend where the entire coaching staff can just focus on defense. And again, Prince Goldsby is committed. It's not like they're going to ignore him, but now he's part of the machine that will be helping to try and bring in Marcus Fakatau into this class. So it's the entire defensive staff is going to spend the entire weekend with Marcus and his family. So normally on these official visit weekends, it's okay, well, if Larry Johnson has a big-time guy coming in, that person is spending all their time with Larry. Larry's going out with their parents. They're only spending time with one position. Like, now it's everyone.
Yeah.
And I can't...
That kind of seems overwhelming.
I think it could be, but it's also for a kid like Marcus who everywhere he goes, it's, well, this is not my favorite place. This is my favorite place. They're number one now. They're number one. No, I like this. No, they're my favorite place now. It will be a differentiator because any other place he goes on this official visit tour schedule of his, and he has 5 scheduled, and he insists that he will take all of them. We'll see. Nowhere else is going to be able to have that experience. And if this is a kid who's all about like the love you feel, all about the current, or how much do they show me they prioritize me, I don't know how you could feel any more prioritized than what Ohio State's going to do for him and his family this weekend.
That's pretty remarkable. The only uncommitted defensive player on a big visit weekend like this, where everyone across the country is starting to make their treks and their journeys, like that's pretty unique. We'll see how that works for Ohio State.
It puts it in a very interesting conversation, because that's, again, I've never seen that before. And then you have David Gabriel George, as I said, who's the top target maybe in the entire offensive class for Ohio State. If there's a one guy that's a must get, it's him. But you have Ole Miss and Georgia who will host him, but then he has his Tennessee visit on June 19th. He has a decision date scheduled for late July, so you're not going to get an answer from him this weekend. But I think Ohio State, the biggest tell, I guess, will be over these next 2 weekends after this one, if Carlos Loughlin is still bringing in Jaden Miles or Nigel Newkirk from Georgia over the next couple weeks for official visits, because the Buckeyes have been very clear they are not making a move on anyone else at running back unless they get an answer from David. Right. So we'll see.
If there are any other recruiting questions that you want Berm to get into heading into this key stretch, or you just want to hear him talk about the romance of recruiting, again, send those questions. It is almost Freaky Friday. So we
need a mailbag.
The mailbag is open.
Yeah.
The Austin and Berm Show at gmail.com is the address where you can get to us. The Austin and Berm Show at gmail.com. We have been loving all of the extra questions and comments and feedback that has been rolling in. We can't do this without you all watching on 97.1 The Fan's YouTube channel, 10 TV's YouTube channel, 10 TV Plus, or if you're just downloading because you don't want to look at us, that's cool too.
Which I don't blame you at all.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Totally fine.
I have lost a lot of weight, but I'm still pretty ugly.
Oh, don't sell yourself short. So if that Freaky Friday's coming, we'll have a lot more coverage coming from the Woody once we get into June. Very much looking forward to that. Also one of my favorite times of the year. Not for the same reason as Berm, but we can get into that and some of the things that I've been able to see and some of my favorite June memories from the Woody, if you want. That's up to you. You let us know, America. But thanks for joining us on a 3 Thoughts Thursday recruiting style version. He is Berm. I'm Austin. This has been The Beat, presented by The Waterworks. We'll talk to you tomorrow.